I'm replacing the starter in this 99 Nissan Maxima. You can see I've already got the battery removed, and I'm going to go ahead and finish the steps to get this out of here. Put in the new starter. Just unclip the air box here. And also there's a connector here for the mass airflow sensor. Disconnect that. There's a vacuum line here on this air box. A couple of larger tubes here. I've already removed the clamps on them because I knew I'd be removing the starter one more time. So then there's a 10mm clamp right here for the bellows, the air boot. And then this should come right out. With the air filter installed. And from this point, I'm going to go ahead and remove this. It just makes it a little easier. You don't have to. You can leave this bottom of the air box in, but I'm going to remove it. It's only 3 10mm bolts. And if you're doing this on your car, you might want to remove it anyway and just clean that out. I've already cleaned mine out before, but I just like, if I can make it easier on me to do it, I will. It's got some rubber isolation pads in it. I'll just set that right there. So the next thing you want to do is, let's see, I might need to change the view of the camera a little bit. So then we're looking at the back of the starter here. That's the solenoid in the starter. There's a connection here to the solenoid. You just push down a tab and remove it. And then there's only one other connection here, and it's from the battery directly. And it's a 13mm, I think. And you want to remove the electrical connections before you remove the fasteners, because that could actually stress the bolts or the wires. So I've got the starter totally disconnected now. Now there's just two fasteners. There's a 14mm bolt up top and a 17mm bolt on the side. So I'm going to get the 14 first, I guess. I'm using long sockets, but you don't need them. I'm just using them to get a little extra reach. And I'm going to switch to the 17 bolt, 17 millimeter down along the back here. That's kind of a long bolt. That's the 17 bolt. Switch back to the 14 and get that thing out of here. So it's helpful to sort of lift up on the starter to get the weight off of the bolt. Just lets the bolt turn a lot easier. And there's the 14. Now I can pull the starter out of here. And it's a good idea to just visually compare it to the one that you're replacing. And I'm going to do that on the bench right now. So here we're looking at the two. This is the old starter. Of course, this one's got a remanufactured tab on it. There are some differences. The gear on this goes all the way down, and this one stops. But that looks like plenty. It only looks like it engages a little over ½ an inch anyway. And the other thing you might want to look at is the connectors to make sure they look compatible. They do. And the wiring's the same, and looks like basically the same starter there. So now I'm going to bolt in the new one. And then it's just a matter of reversing the process here. Let's start with the 14, get that going in there. And of course, I'm not going to tighten it all the way. I still want it to move around a little because it'll help me when I go to do the alignment to get the 17 millimeter bolt in. So I'm just gently moving the starter around a little. I can feel it take the weight off of the bolt, and that's what you want to do when you're just doing it by hand. And so now I'm going to reverse my socket and tighten these up. And I'm not going to tighten it fully at first. I'm going to do one, then the other alternate. I don't want it to get too tight on one particular bolt. I want the starter clamped down evenly. So now I've mechanically got the starter bolted in. Now I'm going to hook up the electrical connections. It's just the solenoid here. I'll do the solenoid last. I'm going to first put this battery connection on there. So there's a nut and a lock washer. And run it in by hand as much as I can, and then back it up with the wrench. Then I install the rubber boot over the connection. And now I can install the solenoid connection here. That just clicks in. Now I can install the air box. And what you want to do is just get all the bolts started first, and then go and tighten them. If you go ahead and tighten one first all the way, it might make it difficult to get the alignment of the other bolts. And I'll leave that 10 one more time. Now I'm going to install the air filter back in here, and the air box cover with the mass airflow. There's a notch on the front here that you align with the boot. And I'll install the vacuum hose here. These are the large hoses. And then lastly, I'm going to clamp down this bellows. You might also want to put some petroleum jelly on the connections here. I've done that before on this car, so that I don't need to do it again, but it helps keep the rubber from sticking, and it also helps it get a better seal. So now, before I put the battery in and test this up, I want to put the starter, connect up the starter, and see how the new starter or the old starter works. So I'm going to install the battery right now. I won't put the hold downs on it yet. But, I changed the terminal on this side, so now this one requires, I think it's a 12 millimeter for the negative, and the positive is still the old 10. I'll tighten up the positive first. Now the negative is a 13 now. It's the old emergency lug kind of thing. These work okay. No, it is a 12. So I also need to reconnect my mass airflow sensor and push it into here, click. Now I'm ready to test the start the car and see how the new starter works. Yeah, I could definitely tell a difference when cranking the motor. The motor cranked over a lot faster than it did with the old starter. And I believe it's because there were some of the windings in the starter were bad or weren't really effective. It definitely sounded a lot different under load trying to crank it. It fired right up and turned right over.